Alrighty, so I have not updated the tier list since Like Liz came out, so like 2 months-ish. So we don't have Meliodas and a couple of other characters on here. We obviously just got out of a collab, so it would be a good time to sort of update things and slap some of these new characters in. I removed Liz and Margaret from the list. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I still have Green Escanor and maybe LV in here. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to throw the non-LR versions back into the list. And I think I'm going to take a little bit of time at the beginning here. I'll probably skip it and just go over it once I'm done to reorganize some of this stuff, because honestly, we're going into year 4. We're coming up on the global anniversary. And, JP's already in year 4. And there's a lot of these characters that are probably considered to be, like, useless, if not, like, some of these really high-tier characters that I have definitely gone down in value a little bit. So I kind of want to restructure some of it. Like, this many S-tier characters, it's a little absurd. And not that, I don't know, it's not the fact that there's that many. Like, if there were that many great units, that'd be great. But in all reality, a lot of these units are not as high as they sort of, you see them in the list anymore. So I think we're going to mess around with reorganizing a little bit. So I'll try to just go ahead and do that, and then I will show each of the sections after I get done with it. So I think first and foremost, this Liz right here, I really don't think that she was all that great. I would give her like maybe C tier. Like, she's surprisingly decent even without her LR, but in most cases, you're not even really going to need to use her, and then she doesn't really gain like a whole lot of actual, usability until you do unlock her LR. The Margaret, I honestly think that Margaret's A tier. I really don't think that she got that big of an improvement with her LR, so I'm going to put her A tier. The LR goes into S tier, and then, we will restructure some things really quickly. So these are all the units that we don't have in the list yet. I think this will come out after the Diane is out on Global. I actually don't have her yet, but I've seen enough gameplay to sort of, come up with a decent ranking for her. But let me take a minute. I'm going to restructure some of these, these tiers. Like, I don't think any of these F-tier characters need to be bumped up or anything, but I think I'm just going to go through D and then move any of them that I want to down. Because I highly doubt any of them are actually going to be going up any tiers, considering that they're just kind of old. But, give me just a minute, and then I'll show you what I've done afterwards. Okay, so it's been like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, but I think I've got everything where I want it to be. So, obviously, some of these sections have grown quite a bit. I've moved a lot of things down. I think the idea that I want to go for is, I think the tier list should be based off of characters' investment value. Like, would I invest into this character? What is the priority there? So a lot of these F-tier characters are just characters that I would not invest into unless I just have, all of the other characters that are halfway decently useful done, and then I would move on to these. Or, maybe some of these characters like King, for example, could be a halfway decent Link character for somebody, but most of the time in the early stages of the game, you're not worried about investing necessarily into a character just for the Link. At least I wasn't. I don't know. There might be a little bit of bias there, considering I played the game before Box CC was necessarily like a huge thing that everybody wanted to go for. Like, I don't remember anybody really caring that much about Box CC in the first like 2 years of the game. I could be wrong. Maybe I just wasn't on that side of the game. But I would say all of these F-tier characters are just characters that I would not invest into unless I just had the excess resources, and for whatever reason I wanted to use the character, or you could use it as a link or something like that. The D-tier characters, I've tried to organize these a little bit. I've tried to go with festival characters up front, seasonal character, or collab characters next, seasonal characters, and then I wanted to do graces because those are good links, commandments because they can kind of change the flow of battle a little bit because of the commandment on the field, and then after that it's catastrophes, Ragnaroks, and then I think it's sins, and then just any extra characters. So the D tier characters are just characters that either have like really niche use cases or might be useful in some sort of scenario, but overall are characters that are probably not worth the investment. Like some of these, like The Festival King right here, the reason why he's in D tier is because he's a character that's really only good for like very, very specific farming use cases. He's like terrible in everything in the game, basically, except for if you have him 6/6, so you have his Abyss ultimate that's really, really good, and you want to farm really fast. The only thing I've even seen people farm with him is, I think it's like Coin Dungeon or something like that. Or not necessarily Coin Dungeon, but like SA Coin Dungeon or like Anvil Dungeon or something. It's really niche. Nobody uses this character for basically anything other than that. So that's kind of the idea behind some of these characters. Obviously, some of them are better than others. It's just personal opinion, really. These are the, values that I'm giving them because I either never use the character or whatever the case may be. C tier characters, we have a couple of the collab characters and stuff. I'm a little torn on Cocytus because he's really good for Demon King. In the sense that if you have him and Albedo on the same team, you can like blow through it really fast. But overall, his use case in most scenarios in the game is not incredibly useful. People do use him a little bit for Guild Boss, so I could maybe push him up to B tier, but I still think that his use case is pretty niche, but still pretty decent at the same time. So I wanted to give him C tier. I don't know, some of these other characters, maybe Maeve could be pushed down to D tier, honestly, but, I don't know. If you have any pushback on some of these characters, I'm down to, listen to it. Feel free to let me know, but, yeah, the C tiers, those are those. B tier characters, the only one that I'm really kind of on the fence about is maybe Light Elizabeth here. This Light Elizabeth is somebody that I see no one use. She's obviously been knocked out of the PvP meta and everything like that. She's okay. She's like on the really low end of like a festival character, if I'm being honest. So I could maybe give her A tier. But even then, like if you have, there's like direct replacements for this character for most things that she could be useful for. So I gave her B tier. I think that's fine. But if you want to fight for her, I might be okay with pushing her up to A tier. The rest of these characters are pretty niche, I think, for the most part. Like some of these festival or collab characters, like Reinhard and Terry, for example, I've seen a little bit of use out of them in Brawl lately because if they have 6/6 ultimates, their ultimates still do really, really well. But for the most part, a lot of these characters are, just not really worth running unless there's some sort of weird niche going on for those as well. Like Chaos PvP, for example. I don't know if I said Brawl a minute ago, but Chaos PvP, for example, does let some of these units shine. I was a little on the fence with the one Assault Mode and the Elizabeth here, just because they're really old. I like the one's ultimate because it's a death ultimate. It can be kind of useful for farming things with damage caps. Or not necessarily farming, but fighting things with damage caps. Assault Mode doesn't really have a whole lot of PvE usage, so I didn't really think that he deserved to go any higher than this. Liz has a revive, which is really good, but on the other hand, that's, there's a newer Elizabeth with a revive that is a little bit better, or I say a lot better, so not really worth having this one, I don't think, anymore. Some of the characters' values definitely go down just because there are much better variants of the character. So like Meliodas, for example, if you have to throw away one of the new Meliodases that are like really, really good on your team to be able to use this older, really niche Meliodas that obviously doesn't make a whole lot of sense, so you probably rank them a lot lower because you can't run two Meliodases on the same team. The A tiers here, I did get a little bit, I think there were some comments last time when I did the tier list that some of these characters like Festival King, for example, and Zeldris needed to be pushed down. I completely think that is fair. I even might try to put King in B tier if you guys are okay with that, because honestly he's still pretty not usable nowadays. The LR Gloxinia has kind of sort of made him okay-ish, but for the most part, still not great. Zeldris is fine. Like, he's a really good backliner if you're using a lot of debuffs and stuff like that, but there are other, backliners that you might be able to run instead. He is getting quite old, so his cards are not necessarily the most useful. And, sometimes it just depends on the CC of some of these characters. Like, if the CC on some of these older units is bad enough, it does kind of bog down your team quite a bit, so that I tried to take into consideration a little bit of that as well. Rest of this stuff I think is fine. I gave A tier to Echidna, and I did remove Rimuru down. Although Rimuru's good, there's not as many buffs in the meta anymore, and if they don't have buffs on, this character is not really great. His infect is fine, like that's helpful. Echidna's infect is fine. Her ultimate is actually really good even at lower levels, which is cool. But for the most part, a lot of these characters are just, they're definitely aging a bit, and it is not really worth using. I kind of even want to put Philo in B tier because she is just one of those characters that you can't really get the most use out of. So I don't know, if you see anybody that you think is out of place, let me know. I will definitely move them a little bit. But the main ones are SS tier and S tier characters, of course. So we have a lot of festival characters in these brackets, a couple of really good collab characters, and some other niche ones. Oh, he actually needs to be put down right here. Definitely above Sariel, but it doesn't really matter the order there. Yeah, we have festival characters first. So we have LR Margaret, and then we have the newer Liz and everything. I think all of these are fine. This Meliodas is definitely starting to age a little bit more. Like, you can use him for some things, but for the most part, he's mainly a PvP character, and if you're going to use a Meliodas, you might as well use the newest Meliodas, or even Lostfane could do, I think, better than this character, just because he has a lot of, like, ult rush potential. His ultimate is insane. Obviously, this character's ultimate is insane as well, but there's just this niche little part of him where you kind of have to have his true magic to, like, guarantee, like, absolutely big damage, whereas, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit biased on that one because I have a lower ult level, but I don't really find this character to be as useful now, so I'm kind of tempted to... Well, I don't think he deserves A tier yet. Maybe after a couple of months, maybe some more festival characters come out, and then, I'll move him down. But I was also kind of tempted to move the one ultimate down, just because he's not really good anymore. Like, you can use him, but for the most part, you'd be much better off using LR Escanor, and then... I don't know. He still has room for a Holy Relic. They haven't given this character a Holy Relic yet, so I do think that is a pretty decent, improvement that could happen. The order of these characters isn't necessarily, indicative of where they should be on the tier list, by the way. I was mainly just going for, like, organizing them more than anything. But... I don't know. I think that he could be moved down because, like, him and Estarossa I would find to be kind of on the same level. Like, Estarossa is just really, really good support to have on the team. Which, I don't know, I guess I could maybe even move this Meliodas down because he's not really useful for PvP anymore, but, like, he's got really good use out of PvE. He also could get a relic. I don't know. There's a couple of weird ones here, but I think that these SS tier characters are fine. These are the ones that I had beforehand. I don't really think any of them need to be lowered. Maybe I could lower tier down to S tier at this point, just because it's getting to the point where he's a little bit less, like, insane. But I think I'm actually okay with doing that. I think I will. So let's move him down to the Ragnarok section of S tier, and then I think that these characters are fine. I think within a couple of months, whenever we get some new collab characters, I might move Demon King down as well. Really, all it takes to stop Demon King is a good infect, or, like, you can technically just ult rush or something with a different character, depending on how lethal their ultimate is, and kind of take some attention off of Demon King. But he's still a really good character overall. There are still people just absolutely running him into the ground in Chaos PvP, which definitely helps me sort of remember how good he is. So let's go with some of these new characters. The oldest character on this list is the new Meliodas, which is obviously insane, just absolutely crazy. He is 100% SS tier. He has power crept the entire game, basically. So I think that is a fair placement, to be honest with you. I mean, you might not like him, but he is quite insane. Obviously, the only downside to him is if you're not getting debuffs on your characters, it can be a little bit harder to pop his passive, but even then, he's still incredibly strong. Next up, we have this New Year's Seasonal King. I think that he's good. I kind of want to put him in A tier, just because he is a seasonal character. I can throw him in the spring section of A tier. He's pretty helpful. He's not a character that I think everybody was like a must-have. He's definitely been way more useful than I think I figured he would be, in the sense that, like, a lot more people ended up summoning for him than I thought they would. But, once you kill him off, like, he doesn't really do a whole lot of damage. The best part about him is that you do have that, pretty decent shield turn 1. Or, well, I mean, I guess it lasts as long as... I can't remember exactly how many turns it's supposed to last, but, you know, it's a pretty hefty shield. It doesn't reapply, so that kind of sucks. And then you do get an attack-related stat buff out of it, which is good, but his damage is terrible. Like, I mean... I say terrible. His AoE Pierce card is fine, I guess. It's not great. And then he does have an ult gauge removal card, so a little bit of ult control. That can be kind of nice. He's just pure support, really. Not a bad character by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think that he deserves to be any higher than A tier. Personal preference there, of course. We have Gloxinia. I took the regular Gloxinia off of the tier list, so that way I could replace him just for video's sake. I honestly think that regular green Gloxinia is F tier, but I think it might be better to place him in D tier, just because if you're going to invest into him to make him into an LR, he actually could be halfway decent investment-wise, because obviously you can make him into an LR later on. Whether or not his LR is worth it to you, definitely a different story. I think I want to give his LR B tier, because he does make your team quite a bit tankier. I do like that about this LR. You know, I wish he could do a little bit more damage, and he can deal some good damage, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, I think that he could have been much better. I think B tier is fine with me. I might even be okay with putting him in A tier, but for the most part, he's very supporty. I don't know. I do kind of want to put him in A tier, to be honest with you. I think I will. So we'll put him in the commandment section of A tier. I don't know. Let me know. Well, actually, I think commandments go after graces, so it should be there. Let me know if there's pushback on that. I think A tier's fine. You know, you get a lot of defense-related stats and everything. I'm on the fence about that one. I understand that not everybody likes the character, and that's fine. You know, everybody has their own opinions of each unit. Shin, the new Shin is, I think, C tier. I don't really think that he's all that great. I think that he is kind of rough around the edges. Maybe we go B tier with him, because, I mean, he does give you decent stats, and the stats are kind of nice. The stats that you get are nice. He does lower the defense-related stats of the enemy. The problem is that his CC is so bad, and his damage is basically non-existent, to the point to where, unless you've just already had Shin invested into, it's going to be a tough sell. I don't necessarily think that he's the greatest investment. Plus, he's pretty much humans only, which makes him a little bit more niche. I could go C tier if you guys want to push back on that, but I think B tier's okay, because, I mean, the stats are nice. You know, you can deal some good damage with him. You can crit more often, but obviously in a game that is pretty CC-based, it's a tough sell sometimes. Next up, we have the collab characters from the new Tower of God collab. We have Viole first. Viole, I think, is A tier. I don't want to put him S tier, just because he's, you know, he's not incredible. I don't think he's better than Kizuna, personal opinion-wise. I think that he's really good, don't get me wrong. I love his Holy Relic, but I think if you have Kizuna, it's probably just better to run her, because not only do you get the attack-related stats, they basically have the same buff card, although because of his Holy Relic, you're going to get a little bit more use out of the buff card. I just find that if there's any scenario other than Demon King where I'm like, hey, I really need, you know, a good stat buffer, I think I would much rather have Kizuna on the team for the attack-related as well over the Viole. Personally, just, I don't know. If you want to push back on that one, feel free. I might be okay with just throwing him, you know, in S tier as well. But I honestly, I don't know. I think he's a little bit more niche than even Kizuna is, because you can kind of throw Kizuna on a whole bunch of different stuff, which, I mean, you can do him too. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that one. I'm just going to place him there for now. Next up, we have Yuri, and Yuri is, I think, really good. I think A tier is probably best for her. She's a really good support character. The fact that she can stop AoEs is fantastic. Obviously, it takes a little bit of prep to get that off. And the amount of stats and like tankiness that she gives to the team is fantastic. She's a little bit more niche in the sense that you basically have to use her with humans. Her Holy Relic is not actually locked down to humans, so I guess you could kind of throw throw her on other teams, but for the most part, you're going to get the best use case out of her on the human team. So I think A tier is fair. I don't think that she really deserves to go S tier, even though I do really like the character. I'm going to try to be objective here and say that, you know, because she's locked down to a specific team, that team is not even like in the big meta right now, I would say. Like humans are definitely viable and you can use them, but I don't think you're going to have like a 100% win rate with them by any means. But then again, no team will have a 100% win rate. Next up we have Zahard. Zahard is a tough one because this guy can actually deal some fantastic damage, but he is so specific. I do think that he's better than Aaron. You can see Aaron is down here in C tier. I'm going to give Zahard B tier because he can do really well, but he's obviously very difficult to use in the sense that, you know, there's a lot of requirements, prerequisites that you kind of have to meet before he can do his best. And even then, you can kind of shut him down with a couple of different things like buff removal or, you know, whatever. So I think B tier is okay. I don't want to place him like super low because honestly he's not that bad. Like he's just really tough to use, but he can still be really, really good. Next up we have the new Diane. I think the new Diane is A tier, if I'm being honest. I think that she is a very helpful character to have. Do I go A tier actually? I don't know. As of the time of me recording this, I have not used the character yet, so I may end up moving this. She is a Valentine's Day character, so it should go pretty early. I guess it goes even before spring, but after New Year's. I'm going to go A tier. I think that she's going to be very, very helpful for Demon King. I have seen people use her in it. She looks great for that. Her stance only gets ult removal at level 2 and higher, which is a little bit unfortunate. It is still a 2-turn stance at level 1, which is fantastic. Her Pierce card, on the other hand, does not do much damage at all, whereas I think that the older Queen Diane is going to have a little bit better utility in the sense that you can kind of, you know, ult gauge control with it once you have it at 4 or higher ultimate move gauge on her because it's a pulverized card. Her stance is just really good for damage reduction in general. Both of them do get use out of the Holy Relic, which I think is fine. And I mean, this new Diane does have some pretty good stuff going on with the passive, but let me know if you think that she deserves to be S tier, or maybe I should move this Diane down to A tier because honestly, she's not as good as she used to be. I'm actually kind of convincing myself that she might actually need to be placed down to A tier at this point. But I mean, she is still really good. Don't get me wrong. Her ultimate is still awesome if you have it at higher ult levels, of course. There is a little bit more stance cancel in the meta nowadays. So I think I'm actually going to go ahead and move her down. Let's move her down to A tier just to be safe. So I think that they're kind of on the same level. I think that's fair, actually. The rest of these characters I think are fine. Like I said, let me know if you have any sort of pushback. I did rework a lot of stuff on this one, so this one's going to end up being a little bit longer, I think, because I had to talk my way through some of this stuff. But yeah, that is, I think, where I'm sitting. Should be fine, I think. I think everything is kind of where I want it. Like I said, there's a couple of weird ones that I don't know for sure, like this Light Elizabeth is kind of in an odd place. And then maybe some of the festival and collab characters could be reworked a little bit. Some of them are a lot older than others. Mainly like the one Escanor. I don't know if he just deserves A tier or not. Maybe he does. But he's really good for PvE too, so I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I think that's going to be it for today. Hopefully this was helpful. And if you have any sort of insight or, you like some of these characters a little bit more. Obviously, if you're good, try to be a little bit objective about it. I'm trying to be. Obviously, some of this is still my personal opinion. This is my tier list, of course. But, I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are. I might move some of these characters around. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you guys tomorrow.